Within the next 5 to 7 years, there's going to be a lot of changes, rapid fire changes in the world. It's an abnormal part of human evolution. From what I understand, things were not supposed to be this way, but they became this way, and the story goes back before time of time.
I've created a 4-month
Please, you have Chopin Sonata number 2. Unbelievably far. So I think you play much more like Chopin would play. Yeah, don't you think so, or you don't think about it at all?
Maybe. I mean, I've also listened to these recordings, and I think they might have influenced me. But yeah, it could be because ultimately, the text is what I.
Yeah, with the text, there are of course, a lot of questions here. Yes. There are several versions, several editions. You never repeat here?
No, I don't usually.
Yeah, maybe it's the best solution. You know this is a problem
yes,
with the even that is a little bit strange.
Yes.
But to do it's even much more strange. So you are right. Yeah, probably it's better not to repeat. I think Michelangelo repeats, yes?
Yes.
But of course he repeats from... What I think about Chopin style and non-Chopin style, so if I may say, there are almost in every piece, in every music, especially in romantic music, combination of masculine and feminine. I think it's still possible to talk about it. And of course in Chopin music is so strong feminine. I mean, all this changing of mood, all this sadness or changing of character is, I think, very feminine. And let's say Rachmaninoff is much more masculine composer, or Beethoven, unbelievably. Don't you think so, or it's...
No, I completely agree, especially with this piece, I think.
Yeah. So the question is everything in this piece from Chopin, or there is some forces aside? So my, general concern is the last theme. So that you played in exposition and the recapitulation, that I couldn't understand what you mean. So probably Chopin would play like this, but for me it's something which is completely aside of Chopin. It's something, for example, this is from him. This is Chopin talking, but is it also his voice or not?
Maybe not. It's a different character.
Probably I think it's not his voice. So most of romantics, they speak from themselves, but also there is something which comes from aside. And that was for me something which I couldn't understand what you want to say or what it is. So let's say this is, this is, you play very well. This is desperado feeling, yeah? What I would suggest, of course it should be very spontaneous, very intuitively, but still all these pauses, I would a little bit think that they should always become slightly different. Slightly different, so... I think you can do these differences even more. Probably you have to think. It's, of course, it should look like it's your way just this second, but maybe something here, it can be even too longer. So I think this can be played more. You can do really more play around. And maybe, so here is, that's the highest point, yeah. And here is maybe, or maybe here, so even more inequality, I would say, but you play wonderfully. You always repeat this F? I thought, but
Yes, I do.
You
Some
always
editions have it slurred, no?
slurred, yes.
I think it's more emphatic this way.
Papiram pop. So. Yeah, I remember probably most of recordings are with slurred, but this is very logical also. Yeah, it's very strange writing here.
Yes.
It's a melodic note or not?
I don't know. Honestly, it could be.
Strange. Yeah, probably it will be very unnatural. Yeah, a lot of strange things. Of course, it's a very unique piece for Chopin. It's probably nothing written by Chopin is so, maybe so fantastic, but so strange for him, right?
Yes.
It's a lot of. So think about how to say in English the Schlussthema.
The closing theme?
Closing theme.
Yeah.
So are you sure it's piano, mezzo piano?
Oh, I don't know, actually.
So it should be something, there are a lot of, it can be uncertain but here it should be something very certain. So if maybe you have to think and find, for myself, I don't see the dynamic getting that much down. So for me, it's something that the forces which don't care about Chopin's mood, about his actually tragedy. I remember one of students.
My first music teacher used to say to us quite often, in the beginning was the rhythm. And if there were a special Bible for musicians, most probably it would start from this statement, in my opinion. But before diving any further in the topics of this video, let's quickly sort out the difference between pulse, tempo, and rhythm. So pulse is basically a constant ticking. When you give a beat to a piece, when you follow a piece with a certain beat, this is a pulse of this piece. The tempo is a speed with which you pulse. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the tempo. And the rhythm is a rhythmical pattern, a combination of faster and slower notes. So in case with this, for example, Polonaise by Chopin. This is pum, 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 pum. This is the rhythm, yeah? It's a rhythmical pattern. Pulsation of quarter notes would be pum, 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 pum. So that's a pulsation of quarter notes. But we can also feel a pulsation of eighth notes, pum, 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 pum. And this is essential to be able to feel different layers of pulsations, not just quarter notes, but also sometimes larger pulsations of bars and sometimes shorter pulsations of eighth notes or even 16 notes. So pulse for musicians should be as real as matter, physical matter for physicists, let's say. We work with that matter, with that rhythmical matter. It should feel as real. Like, for example, in this Chopin's Impromptu No. 1, which I also hope to cover on this channel in the nearest future. So if I feel just beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, then I have more chances to run when things go like a little bit more uncomfortable. 1, 2, 3. I might feel myself in a shaky position of running a little bit. But if I feel pa 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 pa, that level, it helps me to stay a tempo. It helps me to hold the horses a little bit, and also find a like micro rubato, which would improve expressiveness, but also prevent me of running forward. And feeling larger levels brings more structure, unites the music. And in romantic music, also quite often you have to feel pulsation of bars or even phrases. Like, for example, in pretty much every Chopin valse, you have to feel pulsation of bars. 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3. So this level of pulsations, larger level of pulsations, should be your primarily level of pulsations, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, bum. If I would have the same tempo, but if I would feel beats more, if beats would be my primarily level of pulsations, then this music immediately would sound you might feel that it kind of moves with a struggle. It's like walking with effort, being like 100 years old. Oppositely, you have to feel smaller levels of pulsations quite well. Like, for example, in this one. Like in this piece, of course, you have to feel 16 level pulsations, and one level above, 8 notes, pum, 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 pum. And this brings a lot of articulation and a very fine, like, micro rubato into your playing, ability to make fine micro rubato in your playing. In Baroque music, if you would prioritize beats, it sounds worse. This is also important for mastering an ability to play polyrhythms, especially complex polyrhythms, like, for example, 3 against 4. Most of people struggle with rhythmical structures, like when you have to play 4 notes in one hand and 3 notes in another hand, like 16th notes and triplets. And of course, you can try to calculate like which note is supposed to play after which note. But in my opinion, this is a counterproductive approach. I would suggest you to master such things first by establishing a very precise beat, like 1, 2, 3. And the best way is to tap the beat with your feet, with both feet. And you can say also always speak, because speaking helps us to train that articulation, to feel the beat better. 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are your beats. And then you fill them, you learn to fill them with a different amount of notes, with 16 notes, for example. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then with 3 notes, with triplets, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If you're bored with numbers, you can say something like pizza, pasta, pizza, pasta, pizza, pasta, and then barbecue, barbecue, barbecue. But it should be very precise, and you should be able to switch from 4 notes in a beat to 3 notes in a beat, making them very smoothly, like dividing them very smoothly, spreading them smoothly through the beat. And then you continue tapping. So that's essential. You have to feel the beat, to feel a very precise beat. And then you just fill that beat with 4 notes, pizza, pasta, pizza, pasta, pizza, pasta, pizza, pasta. And then with 3 notes, barbecue, barbecue, barbecue. Always staying with the same precise pulsation. And then quickly switching hands. Bum, 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 bum. And then finally hands together, but you synchronize just the beat. Everything else within that beat, you just kind of spread more or less evenly as a butter on a bread. Yes, and you play that in a loop many times until you get it. Hands separately, then hands together, then again hands separately, and again hands together. So I prefer that kind of like practical approach to mastering polyrhythms than sitting with a ruler and counting which note is supposed to be like after a second, 16 note, and after a third. But of course, you're welcome to try other methods for mastering polyrhythms. So that's why the first step is in musical education. Very often it is developing a steady sense of pulse, of pulsations, and of course sense of rhythm. For that purpose, musical education starts often not from playing actually or singing, but from different rhythmical games and exercises. Like for example, when a teacher gives you a pattern, pam 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 pam, and then they start just the first part of that pattern, pam pam, and you're supposed to kind of catch it, pam 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 pam, and replicate, produce the rest, like precisely after the demonstration. Such rhythmical games, of course, are very useful, and there are tons of apps nowadays which you can use in order to train your rhythmical ability. For example, preparing this video, I have found an app which seems to be quite professional. This is not an affiliated marketing. I just tried it, and I think it's pretty good. It's called Complete Rhythm Trainer, which you can find on App Store, but of course there are tons of others. But these exercises, games and apps, of course, they develop primarily your sense of rhythm. So your ability to read or replicate or repeat rhythmical patterns, different combinations of rhythms. But in order to train your inner sense of pulse, you have to also work actively in a little bit different way. So you have to, for example, by practicing anything, you can tap with your feet and count. So this is what my first music teacher was requiring from us, was constantly requiring us to actively count loudly and stomping with the feet at the first stage of mastering the piece. Of course, at the later stage, we would concentrate on artistic aspects. But the first stage during, let's say, my first 3 years of education, I was always required to feel the pulse, to tap the pulse of quarter notes with my feet and count the pulse of eighth notes with my mouth. And you do that like that. If you have, for example, a piece which has 4 quarters, 1, 2, 3, 4, you would count with the word "and" in between those beats, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So then with your mouth, with your voice, you say eighth notes, pulsations, while your feet tap normal quarter notes. So this is how I was supposed to practice, like learning something like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. This is of course quite challenging, and many people, even when I ask to do them, they kind of hesitate to do that because this is an extra effort. But if you master that ability, of course you will. would be much better with your sense of pulse, sense of tempo. And of course, if you practice the piece through like that, you can easily feel where you have the tendency to run. For example, when you switch to faster notes, like here, one and two and three and four and one. But if you feel that pulse and if you count, then you can better feel how 16 notes relate to 8 notes which you had before. So you have a better control over tempo. And if you practice like that a few months, you will tremendously improve your sense of pulsation and your steadiness, rhythmical steadiness. So that's why I would encourage you to actively work on your sense of pulsation, not just relying on metronome for that. So at first we develop the sense of rhythm and pulsation, and later on it turns into ability to feel different levels of pulsation simultaneously. Yeah, so while playing quarter notes, you would feel eighth notes. While playing eighth notes, you would feel quarter notes, and so on. Like for example, in Bach, this is essential. Yeah, so while you play eighth notes, you feel 16 notes, taka 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 tam, and while you play 16 notes, you feel 8 notes, pam 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 pam.